Hi guys, so if you've lost insurance or your meds are very expensive, or if there's been like hospital cuts in your area, then this live is for you. This is not to scare you, this is to give you some great information, as well as I'm gonna just touch the highlights, but you can obviously will lead you where you can get more detailed information. So I do have a class that's out and it's called No Insurance Medication Expensive. And it's really key because what's happening right now, which you don't realize, is not only are people losing insurance, it's very, very expensive. And what's also happening, and you're not going to realize this, is that a lot of things that used to be covered with your insurance will no longer be covered, or it's going to be extremely expensive out of pocket. On top of that, be assured that we're going to be going through even more job cuts. And so if there's job cuts and people get laid off, they can't afford insurance. You also have a lot of people who are aged and older. So if you have parents or if you're older, there's going to be cuts in the Medicare as well as in the Medicaid. I don't want to cause panic. I want to provide you with information so you know how to navigate this. So in this class that I have, that I just released out, this is called Losing Insurance, Hospital Cuts, Meds Expensive. It has 6 modules in it, so it's broken down into bite-sized pieces so that you can easily understand the information. And the key things that I will be covering in module 1 is naturally, how to address the panic. But I'm going to go over some of the main points in here. And one of this is, if you are losing insurance or you're facing cuts, I understand that the easy answer is to fly to China, but people don't have the money for that. And I need to give you practical solutions. And one of that is to start looking at your community resources. Things like telehealth, pop-up clinics, things like training hospitals. There are a lot of low-cost, health community centers that give you a sliding scale. You need to start looking into that. Again, I get into more detail. If you want to know the detail of this, you can, go to my site, or you can click the link in my bio and I have that information for you there. Also, we talk about in this class about basically, because with these cuts, if something happens where your local hospital is shut down, and if you haven't done the research, there has been cuts in the amount of ambulances that come out. So the reality is, if an emergency comes up, it may take a few hours versus 20 minutes to get emergency care. So you want to be able to sustain whatever situation you're in until you can get to emergency care, or emergency medical care can come to you. And I discussed that in here. In the, I think it's in module 6 of this, I go into more in-home emergency actions that you can do. Not everybody is trained in first responder, but I break it down. And when you also take this class, there's also a printout to help you. Things that you can do to help stabilize, like say a stroke, a heart attack, asthmatic attack, a burn, choking. It's like a list of like 10 major crises that a person will call, not taking away emergency medical help, but to give you some time until you can get to emergency help. That's the key thing. I also discuss red flags when you have to call the ER. Things like if a person is chest pains, trouble breathing, you see signs of a stroke, if there's an allergic reaction, this is what's also covered in the course, all right? And then on top of that, because we know with these cuts, a lot of times people end up being let go out of the hospital earlier than what they used to. It used to be you could spend a few days in the hospital. Now it's like you're in and out. You're lucky if you get a day in there. And then you get let go, and you got to deal with aftercare. How do you make sure that you don't get sick again? So in this course, and I would suggest that you also take it with the inflammation course, I discuss about in-home recovery, what you can do for in-home recovery, things like obviously hydration, because you got to be your own nurse. The broths that you need to make, the antiseptics, these are all key things that you need to have so that you can continue that long-term care. And so and also in this class, like if you are losing your insurance, I walk you through how to put together a no insurance plan. And this is key because, emergencies do come up. So you need to already have identified areas that offer like low cost care. And if need be, if you've got to start saving some money or having a credit card specifically for that situation, do that. Make sure you are calling around to see which areas give like low cost supportive ER care or sliding scale, so you're not spending a whole bunch of money. All right, as well as who are your point of contact, because if you're a person that lives by yourself, okay, you need to start having this discussion. You also need to keep the list because you need to know when these places are open, the hours of operation, as well as, like I said, have another point of contact, because if you're in an area where emergency care takes hours to come and get you, you're going to need to call that person to obviously take you to where you need to be. All right. This is what's happening right now in America. If you don't believe me, then you need to take your head out of the sand. We are no longer a first world country. I hate to tell you that. And health insurance is getting very, very expensive, where it's very, very hard for people to afford it. So you need to look at what are your other options. And this is what I lay out in this class. One of the things it ends with about ancestral care, and that's really important because you need to keep your body as strong, as resilient as possible. And I talk about that, especially in class number 1 about inflammation. I touch about it in this course because the more resilient and strong your body is, the less likely you're going to need to go to the ER. And if you do need to go to the ER, your recovery is faster. And this is key because of the fact that we are inundated with so many factors that is depleting and making us sick. So in my class number 1 about inflammation, and I don't want to digest too much, I know people talk about food and herbs. I also talk about practices, and this is key, ancestral practices, things like whether it's dry brushing, things like stretching, things like saunas, things like sunlight, which is which are all these things have been scientifically studied to help people heal. Okay. Now, granted, some people don't live where there's always the sun, and they need like infrared light to help them. And that's where infrared light actually comes from, is from sunlight, because the ancient Egyptians used sunlight for healing. And if you know anything about the ancient Egyptians were Kemet, okay? So they came up with this. They use sunlight for healing. I'm not telling you to go out there in the blazing sun. I'm just telling you to spend at least 10 minutes in the sun before it's like when the rays are high. And if anybody follows me, I talk about healing, outdoor sunlight healing, all these different things, because when it comes to healing, it is the mind, body, and spirit. It is not just the body. It is not just the body. And the body, yes, needs food, which includes herbs. It also needs movement, and it needs breath work, okay? And once you can start healing the body, you can heal the mind. They go together. 9 times out of 10, if somebody is suffering from anxiety, depression, and other things, they have scientifically proven that they have gut issues. There's something going on with the gut. Both of them go together. And there's scientific evidence which has proven when there is inflammation or toxins on the brain, it can cause mental issues. Not saying that you can't go through something mental. You can go through something stressful, but healing is a lot better if we can move the gunk out. And so in this day and age, because of what we're going through, I am begging people as much as everything, and I'm trying to offer you easy, accessible ways so that you can start improving your body, because I know people don't have the money to go to an oxygen chamber. They don't have that. They don't have the money to fly and go to the seven wonders of the world, or go to Sedona, or like I said, go to China and get help or get healing. But you have to deal with things around you. So I give you practical information, foods that are easy accessible. One of the key things is, are you drinking enough water? Because that moves toxins out of your body. A lot of people aren't. You have to be drinking water. You have to be eating not just anti-inflammatory foods. You got to also eat like nutrient dense foods, whole foods. And I talk about this in class number 1. So going back to this, if you're losing insurance, you need to get on the bandwagon of healing your body. Even if you're on meds, you still need to get on the bandwagon of healing your body, because whatever condition you're in, if you are eating crappy food, it's only going to make your situation worse. That's a fact. So if you are diagnosed with something, whether it's something that occurred over the years or something that's genetic, if you are not putting yourself in like eating healing foods, keeping your BLOOD clean, spending time in nature, and I talk about more so in class 5, which I'm working on right now. If you're not doing those 3 things to heal you, medication is not enough. And I have my reservations about medication. And I'm actually glad that all this stuff is coming to the surface, because I used to get beaten up talking about it. Not saying that medication is terrible. I'm just looking at the systems and the countries that administer it. And some countries and some systems are administering it not necessarily to heal you. And you know this. They're administering it to make money, okay? That's why they're administering it. If they can get you hooked on a shrug, eventually, because most shrugs have petrochemicals, and then while you're eating the crappy food, you're just walking yourself down to getting chronic diseases, okay? I've said this over and over and over again. Also, if you're trying to say, okay, I'm eating clean, but I'm also sick, a lot of it also, because these guys are like gangsters, for real. They're real gangsters. They're making sure they're putting toxins in the air, in the water, as well as the household products. And if you haven't realized, this administration has pulled back a lot of the basic requirements of what's the minimum requirement we're supposed to have in our air and our water, as well as the quality checks of our food. So if you didn't think you need to get on top of keeping your BLOOD clean, you need to. You need to, okay? And so one of the things that I stress, especially if you are losing insurance or it's expensive, okay? You need to start keeping your butt clean. You have to start eating these anti-inflammatory foods. You have to start eating your nutrient-dense foods. You need to start eating your whole foods. You have to. You have no choice. This is the only way to stay strong. And you need to get into the mindset of at least doing a detox at least twice a year minimum, because of all the different toxins, all right? It's not just parasites and worms. It's chemicals. It's synthetics. It's a lot of different things that they're inundating that's wearing our body. And so when you end up going to the DOCTOR, what does he do? Writes you a prescription, right? He has no choice. If he doesn't write you that, he doesn't get paid. He's not going to tell you take some herbs or eat better, or, go sit in a sauna or take long baths or infrared and things like that. He's not going to tell you none of that. He's not going to tell you to spend time in nature. The doctors in China do. The doctors in Japan do. That's how they use they work with conventional medicine. That's what they do here. That's what they do in those countries. But here, and it's not just here. There are other countries too, okay? So The goal is, what I'm trying to tell you is, it's not just navigating and saying, oh, let me call telehealth because I'm losing my insurance. Let me go to these pop-ups and stuff like that. When you go home, you need to start eating healthy. I know money is tight. Take your butt to the dollar store and buy some goddamn seeds and start growing some vegetables. Start growing your own herbs. And then at least you know it's not grown with pesticides or herbicides in the soil, or it's, whatever. At least you know it's pure. So then you have your herbs, you can dry them out for the winter months. And now you know that your dried powdered garlic or turmeric or ginger is really 100% garlic, turmeric, or ginger. It's not some bullshit with some sawdust that you're buying that was on a shelf for months from another country, and they could have added some flavoring, and they ain't doing jack shit for your body. Please listen to the auntie, okay? I'm trying to give you some goddamn wisdom. I'm trying to give you some goddamn information. I know money is tight. Once upon a time, the foods that we were given were clean. And I've done classes on this. I looked at, I showed the ingredients of even like McDonald's, and we know McDonald's is scary. I looked at Wonder Bread and stuff like that, and it was really meat. It was like the McDonald's was really beef. The bread was really bread. And I am in my 50s. I don't know how you are, but it was very common for bread to go moldy within a few days. And so we would have to freeze half of it because it would go moldy very quickly. It was very easy for milk to go sour within a few days. It was very normal to see potatoes sprouting, even if you had them in the so if they're sprouting, that means that you can bury them, and they can grow other crops of potatoes and things like this, potatoes and carrots and ginger and stuff like that. You can get buckets. They're easy to grow. I mean, I was just looking on TikTok, and there was a bread making machine, and it was a big one. And there's only 5 simple ingredients in bread. There's the bread flour, there's the yeast, there's the water, and a little bit of salt, and I think I forgot the 5th one. Okay, did I say the yeast? But it's very simple stuff to make the bread, and they had this big, huge, whatever. You can make big bread, and now you can freeze it. At least you know it's bread. So you need to start, even like the ground meat. There's machinery where you can make your own, ground meat, because at least you know it's really meat. Because I don't know, a lot of people are missing. Okay, a lot of people are missing. I'm questioning about the ground meat. Okay, and so I would definitely say, start thinking beyond that. And those little things can help you heal. Now, one of the key things when it goes back, and I don't want to digress from this class, when you're dealing with somebody who has been discharged from the hospital, some of the key things, and I talk about this, is like, especially your own in-home emergency kit. All right. It's easy to say, yes, hydration, but there's a reason, especially dealing with older people. They tend to get dehydrated quite a bit. I'm sorry. And they're not into drinking a lot of water. So it's key when you do give them water, just put a little sprinkle of sea salt in the water, okay? That will help them because it will give them the additional electrolytes, okay? If you can give them a teaspoon of blackstrap molasses, that has a lot of minerals in it too. In fact, everyone should be taking that because we are losing those minerals and electrolytes because of the garbage foods that we're getting, okay? Because they're putting the pesticides and the herbicides, and it's not real seeds. And so we have to, until we start growing our own stuff and bartering with people who are growing their own stuff, or purchasing from people that are growing and they don't have all this bullshit on your food, you need to start adding, because the electrolytes and the minerals are key for delivering oxygen around your body. That goes to your cells, tissues, and organs so that they can function. Those minerals help with with your nerves. your nerves. These are all come together. And I talk about this. This all comes together. It is not normal to see people who are in their 20s sick with the C word. It is not normal to see kids, and I know you don't understand this, who are 16, diabetic and overweight. It is not normal because the food that they are eating is so bullshit. And I know you guys know this. If the food doesn't go bad, if it doesn't decay, what the hell you think it's doing in your body? It's just clogging all your cells, tissues, and organs. And you wonder why you can't even lose any weight. Okay? Not just that, because that's inflammation. While it's clogging your cells, tissues, and organs, because that's what inflammation is, guess what that happens if you ignore it? So, because people think, oh, I'm suffering from, foggy brain, or I can't sleep good at nighttime, or, I have migraines and things like that. Well, what happens if you ignore those things, and I just did a post about this, it turns into chronic disease. And I have to do this because this site can go kind of wacko over what I say. So I have to, make sounds and talk in code and things like that. So what happens is it decays, it corrodes your cells, tissues, and organs, okay? And then what happens is, because it's so far gone, people get upset because now, because everybody's body is different. It's not a one size fits all. It depends on how long you have been riding around with this inflammation. And here's the bad thing. We've been gaslit to think this stuff is acceptable, okay? Which is why people are dependent on the MEDS, okay? Which is not even getting to the root cause. It's just managing your symptoms. You're not even getting better. You go to the doctor, and I had a good conversation with a girlfriend of mine the other day, and I said, you know what? We look at everything for a review. We want to see everything for a review. How well this car is, how well this product is, how well this service is, but nobody asked for the review on the DOCTOR. Nobody asked, this DOCTOR, how many prescriptions did he write incorrectly? How many of his patients decided to transfer to a different DOCTOR because they weren't getting better? Okay? Oh, maybe. How many were incorrectly given a diagnosis from this DOCTOR? Do you get that information? Because I sure don't. But yet I'm judged and told, you're not a scientist. No, I'm not. But I read and I research, and I know game. I've been knowing game. You know how I know game? Because when I was 6, yes, I come from a long line of women who are medicine women and root docs and stuff like that. And when I was 6 in Jamaica, those same root doctors, those same bushmen told me at 6, don't trust the white man's medicine. I know it's a horrible thing to say, but that's what they told me. And I realized, they said the only thing they're trying to do is keep you barren so I don't have children and kill you. That's exactly what they told me. And they were correct. Because by the time I hit 30 and all my friends were trying to get married in their 30s, they couldn't have children because they were on the birth control. Let me give you a little bit of history. When we were the cattle on the plantation, what do you think they did to our beautiful moms and grandmothers or grandfathers when they could no longer, pick cotton or cut sugar cane and get the amount they needed, or they got sick? What do you think they did? They killed them off. They killed them, just like they did with any other cattle. They killed us. And the system hasn't changed. It's the same thing going on today. But now, kind of glad about the Epstein files, a lot of stuff is coming to fruition. People are waking up. I'm not beating you up. I'm trying to help you heal, okay? And for those online who are watching that are Black and Indigenous, you know that we are the original frequency code of this earth. We have a thing called the Eve gene. And they have tried to kill us off for years. Trust me, they have tried. Not just in America, all over, in the Caribbean, in Africa. They have tried to experiment with their drugs and vaccines and stuff they put in the soil and in the air, and it doesn't work. That's all I have to say. So once you start to go back to your roots and you start eating how your ancestors ate, and you start to learn of their land, and you seek out the medicine women in your community, the shaman in your community, the prophet in your community, because that's what they did in other countries. You know, before COVID came out, they tried that bullshit in the Caribbean a few years earlier. They sure did. They called it chikungunya. So that was going on all in Jamaica, and you guys didn't know about it because you know how they control the media. So when it came here, you know, the plague in 2020, I called and I talked to a few of my Rasta uncles, and they told me to take the bitters. That's how I created the bitters. This was the bitters. Now there's bitters that you have that they sell, and I'm not knocking it down, but this stuff is original. This is the original, how the Rastas have it. This is not in a bottle with some, is there a bug in my room? It's not in a bottle with some, I don't know, some stabilizer. This is root herbs, and you have to follow the brewing technique because you want to get it as fresh as possible. And when you're done, because it makes close to a gallon, you put it in the refrigerator. I am giving it to you straight how we have been doing it for generations. We don't get our bitters in a bottle. We get the roots, and the roots has the highest and strongest concentration of medicinal properties, okay? So this thing here helps to cleanse. It's not just cleansing your gut, it's your liver, it's your spleen, it's your kidneys, it's your colon and your gut. Because when it comes to keeping your blood clean and fighting all the stuff around us, you need to clean all those areas. Now, if you have something better, that's fine. But I'm telling, this is more than just cleaning your colon and pooping. We're trying to cleanse the blood and then trying to maintain it, because as long as we can keep those detox pathways clear, because this is foundational. Now, some people have felt some, major relief and improvements just from this, but this is foundational, because healing doesn't work unless you pull the shit out. That's the truth. And the toxins, which is in your liver, your spleen, your kidneys, all that stuff is shit. You need to get it out. That's why you have so many people sick with the flu right now. And they can't get better because their body is just covered with so much mucus. And what's happening is, even if they're taking their elderberry and their oregano and their ginger, is not working because there's so much mucus in your body. You've got to remove it out, okay? And this is what helps. This is what got me and my family through the COVID. But anyhow, enough about that. I digress. Because the point of this meeting is to talk about this, okay? If you're losing insurance, all right? I'm not trying to get off that. But I do want you to know that there is a correlation between this and your health, which I talk about in lesson 1. What I am going to do, if you are following me, in the next few days, I will be giving out a deal. So please follow me. Where I'm going to do buy one, get one 50% off, because I've just released 4 classes. It does take time doing the editing. I know the next class that I'm working on is mental and emotional support and how that helps. And I go back as well as going into ancestral healing and how that was used to help people with trauma and apathy. And I talk about that. Well, do the video about that, how that was used, how there's a correlation with the drums. The drums was the original frequency, the heartbeat of the earth. And then, you know, you got the bells, and now you got people using those tuning forks and things like that, not knocking it down. But I go back and I show how the drums and being by the ocean and certain things help people heal. Because with this going on, if some of y'all were dependent on medications and going to a therapist, that might not be an option anymore. You might need to go back to some of the old-fashioned method that helps some of us go through stuff. Oh my God. Okay, so that is what I am talking about. You're going to have to go back to some of the old-fashioned ways of how healing was done. And for some of us who are, you know, ancestral descent, okay, those are our options. There is a lot of scientific correlation about being out in nature, what it does, okay? I got a restriction. Okay. Oh my God. All right. My visibility has been restricted. Okay. Okay. There's a correlation of going out in nature with healing, the difference what it does with the birds, the sunlight, looking up at the moon. People do cord cutting. I go into a little bit of that because what we're going through, thank you for the love, thank you so much. What we are going through, and it's going to get worse. Keep telling you, it's going to get worse. You're going to need some mental help. You're going to need some mental help, all right? With the other two classes, there's, and then after that, class 6, yes, class 6 is where I kind of go into a little bit more detail, where I identify some of the well-known ailments, chronic, you know, ailments, and naturopathic tools, different naturopathic tools that you can use to help you, support you with that. Because with this happening, you're going to need to know what to do, okay? It's going to get worse. And we're going to have to go back to what our ancestors did. And that's healing. And then the last class that I'm working on, which is class 7, and you can go to my site if you click the link in my bio, is, you know, just ancestral, you know, spirituality, because my presence, my talk is all about mind, body, spirit, and soul healing. That's what healing is. It's not compartmentalized, which what conventional medicine has done. It will just say, okay, you have this singular issue, and like I said, I'm not knocking down medicine. I'm not knocking it down, okay? I'm just trying to help you be more cognitive of what's going on. What I try to do, because I know the game, I've been knowing the game. When you go to the DOCTOR, they're going to definitely write you a prescription. They always do that, or a treatment, because that's how they get paid. I've always looked for a homeopathic or a herbal remedy instead to use. And so if I do need to use the MEDS, which is very rare, it's just for a short amount of time. I'm going to find every other way homeopathically versus using the, you know, MEDS, because I don't want the side effects. I don't want the long term. I don't want the damage it may do to my body. That's just me. And I do other things too. Like I'm always being a person who likes to sit in the bathtub. There's healing modalities with that, especially if you're dealing with inflammation. I go on about that, you know, like if you're dealing with joint pain, it's great if you can sit in a bathtub at least once or twice a week with some Epsom salt. It's better if you have some magnesium flakes and some other things too. It can really help your joint. I talk about things like castor oil that you can rub on there, like real authentic castor oil. And if it's too much, if you can get an infrared light, that's even better. And you can always mix castor oil with some cayenne to help with that area. You know, I always try to look for something so I'm not dependent, because obviously, you know, being in my 50s, people age and things feel different. You know, just like the other day, I had a piercing headache, and I was adamant I didn't want to take anything. So, you know, I tried the peppermint and the ginger, because that's supposed to be known for headaches. It wasn't working. I had my neck massager. It wasn't working. And then I plunged my feet in some hot water, the hottest I can get it, in a bucket of hot water. And I'm telling you, my headache went away. Because it was like a combination between a sinus headache and a migraine. It was just really weird. It just wouldn't go away. And that's what helped alleviate it. So then once that helped alleviated it, once I drank the peppermint and ginger, it had a better effect and I went to sleep. Not saying that, if it got really bad, I wouldn't have taken something, but I always try to go the natural route beforehand. That's just me, so that I don't have any other kind of side effects. So even if I'm feeling like, as a woman in my 50s and say I'm going through hot flashes, I'll say, you know what, maybe I need to do some intermittent fasting, make sure everything I'm eating is, vegan, vegetarian, just drink a lot of water and herbal teas. And it's amazing how quickly that will recalibrate and reduce the hot flashes. And if I'm real aggressive, and I've done that a couple of times where I've gone like straight 3 days without eating, it has totally recalibrated me to the point where I don't feel any hot flashes for weeks, months, okay? So again, because of this, all right, I am trying to give you information because you're probably going to have to come down the same path that I've been pushing. Unless you know something better, you got a whole bunch of money and you can fly your ass to China, okay? Which I know that's where, now that we're not part of the World Health Authority or whatever, they're coming out with all these cures for cancer and stuff like that. Not everybody has that kind of dough. Not everybody has that kind of money, okay? And so, oh, thank you. I'm getting thank yous. Yeah, so not everybody has that kind of money. So I'm giving you easy, accessible stuff that's affordable, okay? And when money is tight, you might have to, when the sun comes out, there's a reason. Go out in the sun and let it hit your forehead before like 10 o'clock. It not just only helps with the circadian, with your sleep. It helps with cellular repair, and it helps with emotion and deep breathe, okay? Do that. If you can't afford to get a oxygen chamber or whatever they call it to help you with cancer, start changing your diet. Start eating anti-inflammatory foods. Start eating a lot of green leafy vegetables. Did you know, and I'm going to tell you how gangster these folks are, and go research it. The seeds in grapes are known to help against, it helps to fight against this. Why do you think they sell grapes without seeds? Okay. Hello. We're dealing with some gangsters right here. We're dealing with some straight up cartels where it's not about getting people healthy. It's keeping them dependent. It's keeping you dependent. Like the street drug, yeah. It's keeping you dependent. And then on top of that, once you are diagnosed with a chronic ailment, that's a cash cow. That's a crash cow all the way to the bank. Because you're going to be forever dependent once they've diagnosed you with it. And remember I talked about the ratings of these DOCTOR. How do you know you haven't been misdiagnosed? You're just taking the word because he went to medical school. Do you know the same shrug companies fund these medical schools so they're teaching them this stuff? You're just taking his goddamn word. Hell no! I've seen them root doctors in Jamaica help people with certain roots fight against this. My own grandmother, cured my sister from epilepsy based on the different roots and herbs that she found in the bushes, and she boiled for my sister. My sister had epilepsy for how many years? And she came out there, and my grandmother fed her, and gave her all these, what we call them bush teas, and she boiled them. My sister didn't need any more medication after that. Never had another epileptic fit. But the stuff I'm telling you is what? Backyard thinking, primitive, all this kind of bullshit. Well, you know what? My ancestry goes back 300,000 years, and modern medicine came about, what, 100 years ago? So I know about 900,000 goddamn information in me, okay? I know a thing or two, because it's been handed down. Anyhow, I'm going to be back, okay? I don't see any questions. I really like you guys being here. follow me, all right? Because like I said, I'm going to be doing a live. I'm going to be trying to come on every single night around, just for this week. I'm trying to come on every single night because I know I've been kind of absent. So see me back again tomorrow. I think I'm going to talk about the other class, which is more of the inflammation class, or I may talk about the stockpiling and the household readiness, because with this continual economic collapse that we're going through, now when you go shopping, you need to make sure you have key pantry items in your kitchen, okay? This is no more, oh, I think I'm gonna get this, oh, I think I'm gonna get this. You need to have logical items in your home, including like spices and herbs that help with healing, okay? First aid basics, yes. So I talk about like the emergency kit that you need to have, but you gotta have some other, you need to make sure you have certain things in your kitchen, okay? Definitely things like Manuka honey. Manuka honey is medical grade honey. And if you are in a situation where the local hospital is shut down and it's gonna take you a couple of hours, and somebody has cut themselves and you're trying to get them to the hospital, the nearest hospital, or they have burned themselves, Manuka honey is a great antiseptic. What it does is it protects the area and it helps it heal. So you need to clean it, and then you can pour the honey or pour it on a gauze and put it on there, on the wound or on the burn, until you can get to medical care. Because this is going to happen. This is going to happen. You think you don't live in a third world country? Oh, honey, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till summertime. Wait till summertime. It's going to get so third world, you're going to be like, what the hell? Okay? Yes, it's going to get something. So you need to start what you need. And also in that class, I show items that don't expire. You need to have these things, because as if we dealing with more supply chain or prices increase or people losing their jobs, you're going to need to know these kind of things. That class also covers other ways to go shopping outside of the grocery stores in order to save money. And I can't stress this more than enough. Start growing your stuff. Start growing something. Get a garbage container and grow your potatoes. They're easy. And grow your carrots and grow your cabbage and grow your herbs. Start growing stuff. Get that machine I was telling you, make your own bread. Start doing these things. And I talk about that in that class. The class number 3, because like 2 and 3 go together and 1 and 4 go together. Class number 3 is navigating through a collapse, both whether it's economic grid or blackouts. And one thing I can tell you is if a country is not investing in their economy, and if it's and they got cuts or they're not reinvesting in it, one of the things you're going to be prepared to see is you're going to see more blackouts, okay? And so when you have these blackouts, which are like mini, grid failure, they're going to last longer than just a couple of days. I mean, Mississippi, I think they were out for 2 weeks. I don't know if they're still out right now. But what happens is you got to need to know what you need to have in your home so that you're ready, okay? You're going to, and I talk about this in class 3, which is household readiness. And like I said, if you just want to go to my site, in household readiness, okay, I talk about how to be ready if you have a both economic, blackout, and grid, and the things that you need. I don't just talk, and I also talk about finance, because if there's a grid collapse, you're gonna need like some small bills. You may need some things to trade, because you can't use your Apple Pay. You can't use your debit card. You can't, all right? You're gonna need to know, you're gonna have to need to know these things and start it's more than just the generators and the solar panels. I talk about, water, how you can access water in your home. I also give you a site that you can go to where you can find a local aquifer close to you. They're all over the US where you can get water, so you don't have to be part of the crowd trying to kick down the grocery store to get a bottle or two. You can actually take your bottles, go to a natural spring aquifer, and get your own spring water, which is better because it's got natural electrolytes in it. Okay? You should be doing that now anyway. So I think I'm come to the end. Yeah, because I think I scheduled this for like 30 minutes. I really enjoyed you guys attending. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow night, and I hope you got some great information from this. Thank you.